Now, answering your questions about the law and legal issues. This is Legal Break with attorney Gary Bruce.
Hello there, Maureen Akers with Gary Bruce today. Gary, thanks again for joining us.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Yes, we're going to jump right in. We're talking about wrongful death. Tell us about wrongful death and what it is.
Well, we hear that a lot, right? We hear that term a lot. So what does it amount to? It's when someone is killed by the negligence of another. So it's a cause of action that you can bring in Georgia and Alabama. There's different rules on each state, like most things, but generally the damages in Georgia at least are measured by what was the value of the life of the person we lost, both economically and just kind of what did it mean for them to be a person?
Yeah.
You know? So those are hard questions for juries, but that's who determines these things. There's not a chart. There's not a graph to go to. It's up to the enlightened conscience of an impartial jury.
Ah, very good. Well, now who can file? So say there is a wrongful death happens to someone or a family. Who can file that claim?
Statutes in both Alabama and Georgia determine who have the cases. It's generally a parent or a spouse or children, or sometimes a combination. Someone has to direct the action.
Yeah.
There's usually an estate claim as well, so if there's some suffering before the death, the person's estate actually has claims too. So that's a part that requires statutory, reading the statutes, knowing what's going on, and trying to put the right people in the right place for that.
Absolutely. So now what about, we've heard these cases happen sometimes where there's a wrongful death, but the person who maybe caused the death was acquitted of a crime. What happens in those cases?
Well, and a lot of times there is a criminal activity involved, and so there may be a criminal trial that takes place before a civil trial for a lot of reasons. And if they're acquitted, it doesn't mean they're not responsible. It means maybe they didn't find intent, but that doesn't mean that they weren't responsible for their negligence. So a lot of people, and I see this sometimes, people will say, well, it was just an accident. Well, that means to me, it was an accident. I didn't mean for it to happen, but it doesn't mean they're not responsible for what they did.
Yeah.
So the negligence of a party is determined separately than their criminal intent, and that's why you may have inconsistent results that way, or what may be perceived as inconsistent results.
Yeah.
So the reason sometimes can be based on the burden of proof too. And in a criminal case, you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. We've all heard that. Civil cases are different. It is more likely than not. So if you look at it like a football field, criminal intent would require you to almost score. A civil case, you get over the 50-yard line. A little different.
Yeah, very interesting. We'll
Thank you.
talk more on that later. Thanks so much, Gary. Look forward to seeing you in the very next legal break.